Hey, I'm Dr. Patton, and we are going to just briefly go over um, some things about this class. So let's do that. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. I was born. Wow, this is always every time I do this, I realize that people online aren't necessarily familiar with all the cities that I'm going to say because in person, a lot of people know the cities that are around Arizona. These are all cities in Arizona. But I was born in Mesa, which is a city in Arizona. And then I graduated from Hamilton, which is in Chandler, which is another city in Arizona. Um, if you have a computer with an Intel chip in it, there's like a 50% chance it was made in Chandler. Um, then I went to ASU for my bachelor's, master's, and PhD. My PhD is in cognitive psychology, which is, or cognitive science is another term, it means the same thing. We're kind of trying to distance ourselves from psychology because a lot of people, when they hear psychology, they think, laying on a couch talking about um, issues that you've got. And that's not at all what cognitive science is. It's more like perception, sensation of the world, perception of the different world around you. So, like hearing, vision, smell, taste, things like that. Also, decision making, um, working memory, things like that. I specialized in auditory and visual perception, and that's how I ended up in the speech and hearing department. Actually, is because I was doing so much work in the auditory domain of cognitive science that I ended up over speech and hearing, where they do just research in speech and hearing, basically. It's exactly what it sounds like. Um, I'm also in free time. I like to run, um, and so if you some of you might be going through college for the first time. If you are, you should take a lot of classes to figure out what you want to do. If you're coming back, if you're a returning student, you've already done this part, so you know why it's good to take a lot of classes and figure out what you actually want to do. I started out as an actor, and this is from a movie I was in. This is me as a runner. After I went to acting, I worked at a radio station, um, and I think you can tell what all the jobs are here. These two are music. This guy did news. This guy did sports. It looks like exactly like you would think. That's me. So, acting, then journalism, specifically radio, and then working in radio, I did a lot of stuff with audio engineering, and then I went into psychology to do the lay down on the couch thing and talk about issues. And while I was doing that, I worked in a lab where I could apply my audio engineering skills, and that's how I fell in love with cognitive psychology and specifically the auditory aspect of cognitive psychology. So all that to say is, if you are in college for the first time, if you just entered, you should, for your electives, just like test things out, see what's going on. You don't want to be stuck in a career that you don't like forever. And again, some of you have already figured that out, and you're back, and welcome. It's great that you're not in the career that you don't like anymore. All right. So these are some things I'm working on right now. If you've been in other classes with me, you know about these already. One is swear words. I've got some new data on this that I haven't. It's not in this slideshow, but maybe I'll tell you at some point through the class. Well, this is summer. Probably won't. Maybe I will publish a paper over. Well, we'll see. We'll see. So I've looked at phonemes, 12 different North American vowel phonemes to be exact. And one of the things we have noticed about them is that some of them are a little bit more harmonic than others. The human voice is really harmonic in general. So to say that one is less harmonic than the other, it's not inharmonic exactly. It's just less harmonic, but still pretty good. And that's the ah phoneme, is the least harmonic. Oo tends to be one of the most harmonic vowel sounds that we have. We'll talk about harmonics in this class, so I think you'll understand a little bit more about harmonics and inharmonicity after this class if you don't understand it already. So that's great. What we've then noticed is that it looks like swear words tend to use more inharmonic vowels than regular words in the English language. Also, E tends to be more upbeat and like a happy phoneme, and tends to be more like down and not more of a low energy phoneme. And is also used more often in swear words than in regular words. One of the ways that we test all these is that we come up with completely non-words, so gleep and glup. And if you have people like, what is gleep? Is it happy or is it positive or negative? Most people say gleep is positive, and then later on you give another group of people glup, and they tend to say, oh, glup is negative. So that's one of the ways that we test these things out. We also look at the acoustic patterns of the vowels themselves. So it's a combination of like behavioral patterns and actual acoustics, showing us that swear words use fundamentally different phonemes than regular words, which is really interesting. There's some, if you're interested in that, I could talk about that more. Send me an email. We've also looked at the Dune Dune talking drum. The Dune Dune talking drum is really it's not popular. It's heavily used. It was originated from Nigeria. And actually, the reason it's called a talking drum is because you can use the patterns of the drum to actually communicate in Yoruba, which is one of the main languages in southern Nigeria. It's a tonal language. So if you know about tonal languages, Mandarin is a tonal language. Nigerian is a completely different kind of tonal language. It's really like, if you think about it, there should be like three different types of languages in the world. Usually we tend to think about, when we're thinking about tonal, you think about non-tonal, like English, and tonal, like Mandarin. Really, that's cutting it a little thin, because people who speak Yoruba don't think that their language is at all like Mandarin. And it's really only, and also I would assume, I haven't asked anybody who speaks Mandarin, don't think that Yoruba is like their language. It's really just mostly like, non-tonal language speakers who are like, oh, it's weird, they use tones. They use them totally differently. We don't use them. We use them for stress and for intonation, but not to convey like completely different messages. So like, I can't think of a 2-syllable word. Phoneme. Okay, yeah, that'll work. So phoneme, you can say it like in any different combination. You can say like phoneme, or you could say phoneme. It's the same thing. But in a tonal language, that might convey a complete difference. That's more like how you would use it in Nigeria. In Mandarin, you put the change within the syllable. It doesn't matter. But there's three different kinds, sort of. The drum can actually mimic the way that that specific tonal language in Nigeria works. Because you can go boom, 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 boom. And that conveys information to a speaker of that language that is interpreted as language. It probably wouldn't work in a tonal language that's more like Mandarin, because the changes are a little bit too fast. It's the structure, the way that the tonal languages in the Niger-Congo language family change are like on par with the speed that you can change this drum, so it works really well for those languages specifically. But you can understand it if you speak Yoruba. You can understand what's being said on the drum just by listening to the changes in pitch. It's wild, man. So what we've done is we've looked at the correlations between what's going on at the micro timing and micro frequency change levels, and we've shown that they're extremely highly correlated. So it's not just at a high level way that they sound similar. They're like exactly the same. The people that are playing the drums are doing the exact same thing that the mouth is doing for people who are actually saying the words. It's really cool. And then another thing that I've been working on is tetrachromacy. Trichromacy is what most of us see in 3 colors: red, blue, and green. Whoops, I almost said red, blue, and yellow, which is not right. So red, blue, and green. That's what most of us see. We have red cones, blue cones, green cones. Would actually be red, green, blue. Tetrachromacy is people with 4 color cones. We know that there's dichromats. Those would be people who are colorblind. There's also color anomalous people who aren't quite colorblind and they're not quite trichromats. One of their cones is really close to the other one, so they're not quite colorblind, but they don't have exactly the resolution that regular trichromats do. Anyway, there are some people who have 4 color cones. Up until about 20 years ago, this was considered like total pseudoscience, right? Like some people would say, like, I see more colors than other people do. I think, I'm seeing these colors. Well, the idea was like, no, you're just crazy. But with the sequencing of the genome, with DNA testing and all that, we actually learned that it is true. Some people do have genetically a 4th color cone. What? So what's crazy about that is you can have the genes for the 4th color cone, and the genes are there, but you don't actually have physically the cone in your eye. So you have the predisposition for it, but you don't have the color cone. This is kind of like you can have a predisposition to certain types of cancer and not get it. You could also have the predisposition for the color cone, have a couple of them in your eye, but not in sufficient numbers to actually change the way that you see anything. And then you can also have them in sufficient numbers, but maybe they're not, for lack of a better word, wired correctly in the brain for you to see 4 colors. So you could still be a regular trichromat even though you've got 4 cones. And then there are people who do see with more colors than the rest of us. So they're genetically predisposed to it and they see things differently. What we're doing is trying to figure out a behavioral test to find who actually sees things differently. Who among the subset of people that actually has 4 color cones does see things differently. That's been a pretty fun project. I'm not going to go into it because it's not really what you're here to learn. So let's go. That jumped up quickly. Let's talk about the schedule of the class. There are not 5 exams. What's going on here? This is 375? Yeah, that's weird. There's 4 exams. Well, that's just bizarre. There's 4 exams. There's not 5 exams. There's an exam for each. There's like 3 major exams throughout the semester, and then there's a 4th cumulative final. The lowest one is dropped, so that second thing there is true. The lowest one is dropped. All of these are going to be completed online. You know that because you're online students, so good. And the exams are broken into multiple choice and hand calculation parts. So multiple choice is going to have Respondus Lockdown Browser. It's multiple choice, so that makes sense. And then the other part, the hand calculations, there's no Respondus. You'll just open up a test. You'll have a time limit, but it'll be quite long, so you don't have to rush. And you'll just have to work out some math problems, but don't worry about that. I know I say that, and some of you are like, oh, well, I've failed this class. You haven't. It's not. That's not true. First of all, it's pretty easy math that we're doing. We're not doing anything with you know, like calculus or anything like that. That's not what we're doing. A lot of it is multiplication. Do we do anything crazier than multiplication? I don't think so. There may be one or two exponents more towards the end. But other than that, it's multiplication, it's division, it is. Oh yeah, there's some square root though. Yeah, there's some square roots that you're gonna have to take. That's the most complicated thing. Anybody can take a square root. And I've also got a ton of we'll go through them in the lectures. We're gonna do we'll do it together. You can follow along in the lectures. But then there's also math reviews that are just the math stuff for each section. So if you want to go back and review that, you can do that. I've also got a practice sheet in Excel that you can do that continually updates. So you can do as many problems as you want. And until you get the right answers. They've got an answer key on that sheet too. So you can always check your work. So you should definitely get 100% on the hand calculations. If everybody gets 100% on the hand calculations, I am extremely happy. I'm also happy if you get 100% in the multiple choice, but people don't seem to get as worried about that as they do for when you say math. You say the word math, people freak out. Don't freak out. You're going to be fine. I'm going to help you get through it. That's what I'm here for. You'll be fine. There are 8 quizzes. You're going to have 2 attempts to do the quizzes. The first one, I want you to go into the quiz, treat it like a test. No, and don't open your book. It's closed book. It's just out of your brain. The second attempt, you need to get 100% on that one. So use the first attempt to figure out where the gaps in your knowledge are. Use the second attempt to get all of those points. That's for quizzes. The exams, one go, closed book. Except for the math calculations part, that's open book, but the multiple choice part, closed book. There's also 6 homeworks. There's actually 7. I have like a bonus one that you do for extra credit. These are just going to be practical assignments using Audacity and Pratt. We're going to talk more about Audacity and Pratt in like 2 seconds. So that's great. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's talk about exams really quickly. So we're kind of changing the tone, a little bit of bad news. There has been kind of a huge increase in cheating in the last, I would say, 2 years. Maybe 3, seems more like 2. What goes on is I used to have all my exams open so that you could see what you got wrong and study from that. That's a problem, though, because people take screenshots of this and they put it on Course Hero and Chegg and other places like that, that is academic dishonesty. So even if you're not using it to cheat, putting it somewhere where other people can use it to cheat is still considered academic dishonesty, and getting dropped from the class and getting an XE is an option if your account shows up with these things in it. And Course Hero and Chegg, like if we talk to them, they let us look in the people's account to see what's there, as if we had a paid account, even though we don't. So don't do it. Don't upload things. The only thing that really is going to benefit you is like uploading you can upload your notes. That's fine. That's what those things are for. And you get like credit for uploading your notes to get other people's notes for other classes, but don't upload the answers to things like quizzes. Don't do that. Don't upload the answers to tests, of course. These are all, again, academic dishonesty. So what I had to do is I had to turn off exam feedback. This isn't great because the best way to learn is to see what you got wrong. But so I had to turn that off. If you need to see it, if you'd like to see it, make an appointment with me. If there are a huge amount of people that want to, we're just going to have to like schedule a time when the most of you can make it, and then we can look at the answers together. But we're still having cheating problems, even though I turned off the exam feedback. And so what I had to do was, and not just me, this is like the entire online team, we also had to turn off the ability to go back in questions. So you can't leave a question and go back to it. You have to answer it and move on. The reason for this is they're randomized in order. So if you are taking it at the same time as someone else, you could wait for them to get to the question, then go back to it and answer the question. But this way, you can't. You have to go through it in order, and so does the other person. So you can't cheat as much. This is good for people who are not cheating, because what that means, I curve my exams. So whoever gets the highest score, we're going to make them get 100%. Everybody else gets points to bump them up to, like, person gets, if they got an 80, highest person in the class gets an 80. Everybody gets 20 points added to their score. Even if you got like a 10 out of 100, you're going to end up with a 30 out of 100. So everybody gets 20 points added to their score. That's the way I'm going to curve. And so this works well, because one of the other things I was seeing was people were coming through these exams and getting like 96. So I'd only add 4 points. And that meant that people who actually tried, if those people that got 96 were cheating, but the person who actually tried and wasn't cheating got an 89, then I should have added 11 points to everybody's score, but the cheating kind of ruins the curve. So this is good for all of you who are taking it and being honest. This is great, because I'm still going to curve. So probably a bigger curve. But I do know that some people are going to be nervous about not being able to go back. So if you know about it now, it's not going to like jump on you when you take the exam. Just know you can't go back. You have to answer the question, then move forward. Okay. All right, let's talk about Pratt and Audacity. These are two excellent programs. Pratt, which is actually pronounced Pratt, but I'm probably not going to pronounce it that way, is a cool, it looks intimidating, but it's not. You should download this now. And there's other videos where I'm going to show you how to use it. I'm also going to show you how to download it and install it on the other. I don't think I show you how to install it, because you just click on the file and then it runs. But I'll show you how to use it first time. It looks complicated. It's not complicated. A couple clicks and you'll get to where we need to be. So you'll like open a sound file and you can look at it as a wave. It's a little outdated, a little clunky. So if you, it's not aesthetically pleasing, but it works really well. Audacity is aesthetically pleasing, and it also works really well for what it does. Audacity, of course, is more of an audio editing program. It has some spectrograms and some stuff like that. It's a little bit more intuitive if you've used audio editing programs. If you're new to the whole thing, then that's great. Pratt will probably be your friend, because you don't already know any like bad habits or easy shortcuts. So that's good. So Pratt and Audacity, both of them are free, and they're great. I have them on my computer. They're one of the first things I download whenever I get a new computer. So you should go ahead and get these. They're great. You'll also need any calculator. You can use your phone, because for the hand calculations, again, that's not a part of the class that uses Respondus Lockdown Browser. So you can use your phone. But let's see. there might be questions in the multiple choice portion, one or two, where you're going to have to do some adding, subtracting, maybe some multiplication. So any calculator that isn't your phone will work for that. This is my old Casio. This one works really well. It's like a scientific calculator, but it's not a graphing calculator. This stupid thing will also work fine, except it is so old that the lid doesn't open. There we go. So this tiny thing will work well. It can multiply, it can divide, it can add and subtract, and it can do square roots. So this is perfect. And then if you're, if you were a cool kid in school and you had any sort of graphing calculator, that works well too. I mean, it's going to be way more overpowered than what you need. But it works. I've got games on mine. Okay. It's like a Grand Theft Auto game that some guy just gave me in math class. It was a great way to pass the time during state testing. Okay, so these two programs and any calculator, this is what you need. Everything else, and the textbook. You should have the textbook. Look online and see if you can get a cheap copy of the textbook, or see if there's like a PDF copy of the textbook that you can get for free. You can get an older edition. It's totally fine with me. It has all the same information, and it's presented slightly differently, but nothing that's going to change the way that you understand it. So an older edition is great. See if you can get a free online copy. That's another good option. Look on Amazon, eBay for old editions. Do anything you can to avoid buying a new edition, because I know a lot of these are floating around out there. They haven't put out a new edition in a while. And I require it in all my classes. I doubt everybody that takes my class keeps the book. So they're there. They're somewhere. You just got to look for them. Okay, next. Extra credit. There will be extra credit. You'll either participate in a research study of mine or somebody else's. And if there are no research studies, I will have definitely at least one, some other possibility for you to do for a way to get extra credit. Like I said, there's also one extra credit homework opportunity. So that's another way to earn some extra points. And hey, here's a little public service announcement about the DRC and sales. DRC stands for Disability Resource Center. Sales stands for... Yep. Don't remember. I thought I had it, and then I didn't. It's like the Student Accessibility... Oh, well, doesn't matter. It's like DRC. It means the same thing as Disability Resource Center. So they're called sales now. You should visit them in person or digitally. Obviously in person if you live here in Arizona, or digitally if you're online. And there's some things that, like, I think it's obvious if you need accommodations for, right? So like if you poke yourself in the eye partway through this class and you can't see very well for a while, that's obvious that you need some sort of accommodation. But there's other things that can go on that you might not realize that you need accommodations for. So I had a student, this is an in-person student, but also my chair's making a ton of noise as I lean back. Sorry about that. But I had a student in person who wouldn't have enough time to finish his tests. And he came up to me and he's like, I do really good on the tests. I don't have enough time to finish. Is there any way that I can get more time? And I'm like, not really. Like, we're supposed to keep it to one class period. But I looked at his exams and he's right. Sometimes people say, I do really good and then I run out of time. And that's not true. They're not getting most of the questions correct that they had time to answer. But for this person, he was getting all the answers correct. It was like 100% that he got until he couldn't answer the rest of the questions. And then that combined made his score like 80, low 80, high 70s. So it did seem true. But that's what was going on. And as he's telling me what is going on, he's like, it just takes so long to read the questions. And I get confused about what I read, so I have to go back and I have to read really slowly, make sure that I'm reading it correctly. And I'm like, this kind of sounds a little bit like not an issue with the test. Like obviously the knowledge of what he's doing is there. It seems like more like a reading thing. So I said, maybe you should go to DRC. And he goes to the DRC. They give him a test for dyslexia. Guess what? He's been dyslexic his entire life. And he just thought this was the way that people read. He thought that was reading. Because when you don't talk to anybody about that, it's true. The last semester, when I was telling that story, I had another student say, hang on a sec, that sounds like me. I didn't realize that people would just read things so quickly and not have to reread it, and they'd understand it. And I'm like, yeah, that's how it goes. And so he also went to the DRC. I don't know the results of that one. But at least 2 people so far have realized that maybe there's something else going on that's hindering their progress in their college classes that's not their own knowledge of the subject area. Dyslexia, test anxiety, auditory processing disorder. There's a whole host of things that are kind of outside your control. It's just like stuff you're born with or stuff that happens to your brain as you're developing. And these are all things the Disability Resource Center can help you with. They can give you accommodations, some other things, like more time. So this guy benefited from more time. They set him up with a font, he downloaded a thing for his computer that changed everything into a font called Open Dyslexia. So if you are dyslexic and you don't know about Open Dyslexia, download this as a font for your computer. You can install it and make everything a font that's better to read. Essentially what's going on with Open Dyslexia is the letters are like kind of cool and funky. They're like 70s, like bell-bottomy, sexy letters. Let's see. There you go. There's Open Dyslexia. See how they're like cool and like wow, like that kind of thing. Here's a better example. This is helpful for some types of dyslexia, not all types, which is a thing I learned from that student, that there were more than one type of dyslexia. But there are other fonts that can help with other types of dyslexia. So again, if you are dyslexic and you didn't know about this, get it. Sometimes people just look at this and they're like, wow, that's easier to read for me. Well, maybe that means you're a little dyslexic. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you're totally typical. And this is just an easier font for you to read. But now you know about it. You can download it and use it. You can read things on your, definitely on your computer this way. I'm not sure. There's got to be a way to download it for your phone. I just don't know about it. But that's another thing DRC can help you with. Okay, so that's my PSA about the Disability Resource Center. Oh, yeah, right. It never hurts to see. This is the other thing. So nobody knows. If you think there's something, you can go in. They'll have a test for you to do, or they'll have some way to check you out to see if you need accommodations, or if you qualify for accommodations, I should say. If you don't qualify, they don't tell me, they don't tell your classmates, they don't tell your family or anything like that. Nobody knows. There's no record of it. There's nothing. So it does not hurt for you to see. Just check it out. If you do qualify, it absolutely could mean the difference between like failing this class and not, or a different class, or your entire college career. Who knows? So there's really, it can only help if you think that there's something going on. Like I said, nobody knows. It's between you and the person at the DRC that you talk to. And if you don't live in Arizona, you're talking to some person who lives in a state that you'll never go to. Well, I guess Phoenix is pretty popular. You might go here. There's nothing to see here. So, just go to California. Anyway, well, there's a Grand Canyon. And saguaro cactuses. Those are pretty good. Anyway, you're talking to somebody who's in a state that you may go to at some point, but way down the road. All right, so you should do that. That's the end of the slideshow. That's all I was going to talk about with our class. Good luck for this next 2 months. And I'll see you in another video. Oh, yeah. Oh, you're going to see this a lot. I forget that I have to go back somewhere else to stop the recording.